And you're watching MNN Mid-Day. Up to the minute, breaking news from around the world.
Good evening and welcome to Midday. Our lead story this hour, Cuba's ruling Communist Party elected President Miguel Diaz-Cancel to succeed Raul Castro, who succeeded his deceased brother Fidel Castro as party's first secretary. First secretary is the most powerful position in the country and one approved expeditiously on the final day of its Congress this past Monday. Now, the succession marks the end of 6 decades of rule by brothers Fidel and Raul Castro, who led Cuba's leftist 1959 revolution in a transition to a younger generation that worked its way up to the party's ranks rather than forging itself through guerrilla warfare. Now, Diaz-Canel, 60 years of age today, was born after the revolution and already succeeded Castro as president in 2018 and had been widely expected to also take the role of first party secretary. He has emphasized, though, continuity between president and is not expected to move Cuba away from its one-party socialist system, although he will be under much pressure to undertake economic reforms in today's Cuba. Our next story comes to us from the Pacific Northwest. Canada will be investing up to 30 billion Canadian dollars over a 5-year time plan for a long-promised national child care program and help female employment recover from harm done, they say, by the COVID-19 pandemic. Finance Minister Chrystia Freeland said on yesterday. Now, Freeland, who has stressed her feminist credentials since becoming Canada's first female financier last August, said Ottawa wanted to bring the average daily fee for regulated child care down to Canadian $10. Now, within 5 years and half cost by the end of the next year. She also made these following comments in that particular press conference, and I quote, "COVID has brutally exposed something women have long known. Without childcare, parents, usually mothers, can't work." She said prepared remarks to lawmakers as she delivered her first budget, noting that women's participation in the labor force had fallen to its lowest in more than 2 decades. Freeland noted that Quebec, which has the highest female employment of any province, has had its own heavy subsidized childcare system for the last 25 years, under which parents currently pay around Canadian $8.35 a day. Now, monthly childcare fees for toddlers range from Canadian $181 in Quebec City to above Canadian $900 in most other Canadian cities. Now, moving to business. In business news, if you heard about it, GameStop, they're back in the headlines today. GameStop Corporation's George Sherman steps down this year as chief executive officer in the biggest shakeup at the video game retailer. Now, giving top shareholder Ryan Cohen more control as he leads the company's shift to e-commerce. The company's shares, which were at the heart of the Reddit-driven trading frenzy, jumped 9% in pre-market trade on Monday after GameStop said Sherman would resign on or before July 31st and that it had started looking for a successor already. So, if you're in GameStop stock, this may be your time to get in or time to get out. And now, concerns of global dominance. Chinese President Xi Jinping on today called for rejection of hegemonic power structures in global governance amid growing tensions between Washington and Beijing. Now, MNN would classify that President Xi is placing America as a pseudo-hegemonic leader globally in these talks. Hegemonic is a ruling or dominance in a political, social, economic, or military predominance and control of one state over others. China has also repeatedly clashed with the biggest stakeholder in the world governance, particularly the United States, over a range of issues from human rights to China's economic influence over other countries. Now, the world wants justice, not hegemony. That's what Xi said in remarks broadcast to the forum. A big country, he said, should look like a big country by showing that it is shouldering more responsibility, he said. While Xi did not identify any country in his remarks, Chinese officials have in recent times referred to the U.S. as hegemony in public criticism of Washington's global rejection of power in trade and geopolitics. Now, speaking at the annual Boer Forum for Asia, Xi criticized efforts by some countries to build barriers and decouple what he said will be harm and others benefit no one. Now, next up, Yesterday he made president after 30 years once more, and today he is dead. Death after being elected. Chad's president, Idris Deby, killed on the front line, and his son is expected to take over. Chad's president, Idris Deby, who ruled his country for more than 30 years and was an important Western ally in the fight against Islamic militants in Africa, has been killed on the front line against rebels in the north. Now, Deby's son, Mahatma Kaka, was named interim president by a transitional council of military officers. So, like I said yesterday, he was just elected president again after 30 years of being president, and today he is no more. In financial news at this hour, Canadian National launches battle for Kansas City Rail with $30 billion plus bid. Canadian National said today that it had offered to buy railroad operator Kansas City Southern for about $30 billion, trumping a rival bid by Canadian Pacific and sending the U.S. company shares up more than 20%. The combination will create the largest North American railway spanning across the United States, Mexico, and Canada by transaction value. Now, the offers come amid a recovery in supply chains that were disrupted by the COVID-19 pandemic and follow the ratification of the U.S.-Mexico-Canada agreement last year that removed the threat of trade tensions, which had escalated under the former U.S. President Donald Trump. Now, that's it for this afternoon. Tune in each week and each weekday for the news updates on MNN Midday. Thank you.